To the April 11th, 2023 board meeting here, White Lake Township Board meeting here at the Annex. At this time, I'd like to ask you to turn your cell phone ringers off, please. And at this moment, I would like to call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. And I'd like us to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk, Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Trustee Smith.
Here.
Trustee Ruggles.
Here.
Clerk Noble here. Supervisor Kowal.
Here.
Treasurer Roman.
Here.
Trustee Voorhees.
Present.
And Trustee Powell.
Here. Okay. I'm going to make a adjustment to the agenda. We're going to remove item 6F, the department report for the treasurer, due to the timing of the board meeting is not available, but when it becomes available, I've been assured it'll be forwarded to you. So that being said, I'd like a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
Are we still going into closed session?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I have motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Item number 5, public comment. Anyone from the public would care to come up to the podium and identify themselves? So you have 3 minutes to state your business for the township.
Name is Steve Woodard, 953 Schuyler. I just want to make a shout out to Rick Kowal and the supervisor's office, and specifically Kelly Lang, and the treasurer's office for helping support and get this shrink wrap recycling program off the ground and running. And I think it's doing quite well, actually. So just want to say thanks. It's been well appreciated in my neighborhood, Lakewood Village. And I sold 30 bags myself and made a big dent, and people are actually recognizing me on the street now that we've done a video about it.
That could be a bad thing, though, you know.
Yeah. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, not sure yet. So, but I just want to say thanks. I appreciate you following through on it. That was after a meeting suggestion, we talked and you ran with it and got her done. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I want to turn this around, because if we didn't have residents like you that got involved in things, the township can't do everything, so it's certainly greatly appreciated that you've put your foot forward to come and help us, and we certainly appreciate that. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we
Thanks.
need more bags too, Rick.
Yeah, we're going to order.
Thanks for coming, Steve.
We're working on it. Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Public comment? Seeing none, closing public comment. Next item, consent agenda. It's a list of revenue, expenses, check disbursements, and department reports. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion to approve. Looking for support?
Support.
I have support. Motion support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. Minutes, approval of minutes of March 9th, March 14th, and March 21st. The 9th and the 14th were special board meetings, and the 21st was our regular board meeting. I'm looking for a motion if there's not any comments
I
from the
have some
board.
adjustments on the 21st meeting. Page 7. Let me get to it. It says trustee Voorhees questioned what Director O'Neill would drive if he were trading in the vehicle he currently drives. I was talking to Director Potter. That, and the same thing on the next sentence. They just need to be both changed to Potter. And on page 8, it goes from a 2008 vehicle to a 2007 vehicle. On paragraph 2, Potter indicated that the 2008 assessing vehicle is not roadworthy. That should be a 2007 assessing vehicle.
Okay. Anything else?
Mr. Supervisor, 2 very small items. Page 17, the first paragraph,
Which meeting?
I'm sorry, the March 21st,
Okay.
page 17, right at the end of that paragraph, let me get to it. Page 17.
Which paragraph?
Paragraph number 1, Supervisor Colwell indicated there is not another vehicle fight now. I think that should be right now, an R in that one.
Oh, yeah.
And then on page 20, the third paragraph down, if I can get to it here, the third paragraph down, the end of the fourth line, there's no T in the word culvert, and it should obviously be culvert with a T on the end of it.
Okay, any other comments?
That being said, Mr. Supervisor, I move approval of the minutes for the special board meeting, March 9th of 2023, the special meeting on March 14th, 2023, and the approval of the minutes for the regular board meeting on March 21st, 2023, as amended.
So moved, looking for support.
I'll support that.
A motion, support, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Public hearing to comments regarding the confirmation of the special assessment role for the Special Assessment District, SAD designated emergency sewer connections 2023-01. We have done this periodically over the years for special assessment districts for hooking up to the sewer. I will make a motion to open the public hearing at this time, looking for support.
Support.
Roll call vote.
Supervisor Kowa,
Yes.
Trustee Powell,
Here, yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Smith,
Yes.
and Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
Public comment is now open. If you in the public so wish to comment on the special assessment hearing for the role of the Special Assessment District designated emergency sewer connections 2023-01, please identify yourself at the podium and you'll have 3 minutes to state your case. Seeing none, I'm making a motion to close the public hearing, looking for support.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed. Item 9A, Resolution 23-001. Mr. Roman?
Motion to approve Resolution 2023-01, confirming the role.
We have a motion to confirm 23-011 to confirm the special assessment role. Looking for support?
Support.
I have motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Item 9B, Building Department request to set dangerous building show cause hearing 9090 Buckingham Garage.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am no Nick Spencer, but I'm going to try to do this justice tonight. So you have a memo
He's got
from...
more hair.
He does. He is a better dancer, too. There's a memo in your packet dated April 10th of 2023, and today an email was sent, I think, from the supervisor's office with an order from the Dangerous Buildings hearing officer kind of explaining what's going on at 9090 Buckingham. Really, tonight, all we're asking for is that the Township Board set a show cause hearing for May 16th, 2023, as is required by the ordinance. That is the next step in the process. So a decision doesn't need to be made tonight. Nick will be able to attend the May meeting to further discuss this with you. So again, it's just simply a little bit of background information for you and a request to formally set that show cause hearing for the next regular board meeting, which again is May 16th.
Any questions or comments from the board at this time? We can get into the details of this at the hearing. It's quite obvious from the condition, and if a drive-by was done, I think it's very easy to see that this needs attention. Any questions or comments? If not, need a motion?
Mr. Supervisor, I believe that our dangerous building hearing officer, Mr. Bruce Johnson, did a very good job holding his hearing, in which the owner did not show up to defend his structure, and therefore I move that we schedule a show cause hearing here at the Township Board level at the first possible date. And do you have dates in mind, Mr.
May
Supervisor?
16th.
May 16th, then, Mr. Supervisor.
Okay, I have some motion, I have support, or that was a motion.
I'll support it.
That was a motion from Mr. Powell. I have support from Mr. Noble. All in favor? Aye. We have set the meeting. Mr. Roman.
Mr. Supervisor, 9A, my motion, I believe I quoted the wrong resolution number. It should be 23-011.
Oh, I
Mr.
beg your
Supervisor's corrected it for you.
I
when
think
he
I
repeated
You already
it.
got it?
You got it.
I think I
Thanks for
corrected it.
having my back.
Yep.
It's okay. That's why we do this. Thank you. And the building department, the hearing is in motion. Request to approve contract for masseuse at Dublin Senior Center. If you know, in the past, this has come before us. Counselor, you have anything you want to add for this? This is just, I'll call it routine contract for,
Yeah, we'd like to make this our standard contract for any future massage therapists to come to Dublin Senior Center. Am I not loud enough? That's a first.
no, got it, okay. I was going to grab that one, but you beat me to it.
This'll be our standard contract, so it'd be a template that you're approving for any future years. You might recall in the past, we've done similar things, but what we have since learned is that we are authorized to provide services, and this is in exchange for services, at least a reduced fee in the services. The township is waiving the application fee for the massage therapist performing at Dublin.
Very good.
They still have to go through the interview, inspection, investigation process. We're just waiving our fees for that.
Correct. Thank you. And I appreciate you revising this, and I think it will streamline things for other offices. I'll call it a housekeeping matter, so I certainly appreciate it. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Survive, I just want to make sure I understand it, because the document says that we're going to be charged $60 an hour for this.
Not us.
It says the township will pay.
Well,
That's why
Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
asking, how much is the individual going to be paying for this service?
they pay the same fee. There's no cost ultimately to the township.
Okay, that's what I just wondered.
And it's
So it's
just why it has
$60,
to be kind of,
so it's $60 for an hour's time with the masseuse?
That's correct. And my understanding is when the appointment is scheduled, the senior pays the senior center that dollar amount, and once the massage is given, then the township then pays the masseuse through this contract.
Okay.
we just get
It
reimbursed.
was unclear in the document, so thank you.
Yeah, it's just the way that it had to be kind of drafted.
Yep.
So, for the purposes of, but thank you. Okay, looking for a motion. Mr. Powell?
Mr. Supervisor, I move the contract, or the template contract, and the specific contract for the masseuse services at the Dublin Senior Center as presented.
I have a motion, looking for support. Support. Trustee Smith, I have support. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it, thank you. A request to approve Cole's planned development agreement. Mr. O'Neill.
Yes, sir. Township Board, last Thursday, the Planning Commission considered this request and also an amendment to the final site plan for Kohl's. What they want to do is they've brought Sephora in, and Sephora was previously JCPenney. They've now moved over to Kohl's. They want to change their wall sign to add the word Sephora or plus Sephora to the sign that is south-facing, right on M59. And if you look at the screen, which is in your packet, you'll see, the proposed sign at a much closer distance than the existing sign, which is at the bottom of this image, kind of as you would see it from M59. So the Planning Commission approved the revised site plan to make this plan change, to add this additional square footage to the sign. And they made a recommendation to you that you approve the addition of plus Sephora to the Kohl's sign. Some of the reasoning was, and Mr. Ruggles, actually, you and I spoke about this, Mr. Ruggles, and so I'd explain it. And really, the distance from the road was a factor. The fact that the Kohl's word letters will be switched out, but the word Kohl's will not be any larger. It'll just have LED lighting behind the panel. Updated. Correct. It'll just be updated. There is a sign that faces east faces Porter Road, that sign is not being changed at all. So the plus Sephora is only being added to the M59 frontage or the south-facing sign. In your packet, you have the review letter from the staff, as well as the township attorney. Kohl's and Sephora have agreed to all the conditions. In summary, it's a 96 square foot increase over the existing sign, which is 193 square feet. The ordinance has a maximum of 200 square feet, and so they're going 89 square feet beyond the max. Again, this is planned business zoning, so you do have the flexibility. They have a pretty large building with just one sign on its frontage, and Planning Commission and the staff don't object to this. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the board? Seems like a reasonable upgrade.
I did not quite understand. The write-up says that the Kohl's lettering did not change size. Then it quoted the Plus Sophia sign as being 69 square feet, something like that. But the entire sign now is 96 square feet more. So I don't understand the math.
I believe the discrepancy is in how the sign is measured. I think the ordinance could be interpreted and I think perhaps the confusion is that Sephora believes that they're adding the smaller number of square feet, and the way it was reviewed was drawing, if you can see my cursor on the screen, drawing a box around the entire sign and measuring that. That is 289 square feet. If you were to just add the plus Sephora, which is their opinion on how it would be interpreted, our ordinance would be interpreted, you'd be adding the additional 60 square feet, so you'd only be 57 square feet over. So either way, just to kind of eliminate any discrepancy on how it's measured, we've just used the larger, the exhibit is the sign image itself, but we've used the larger square footage to kind of eliminate any back and forth, so.
Okay, and then the Sephora sign was not on the JCPenney building, was it not? It was not.
It was on the marquee out in front.
Oh, it was on the marquee out front?
And it is already on the monument sign because we could approve that administratively at Kohl's. But I don't remember it being on the JCPenney building previously.
I don't believe it was on the building, but it was on the marquee. Yeah.
So the hardship they're claiming is that the Kohl sign's going to remain exactly the same, and by adding the Sephora, they believe it needs to be that large, and they didn't want to scale down the Kohl sign to offset it. I believe the report properly points out that the ZBA would not grant this approval because there's no hardship. It's a self-imposed hardship. They want it because it is. So the Planning Commission made a determination that they felt it was reasonable, and that's why they're coming to the board then.
So, and this did come up at the Planning Commission. I let the Sephora people know they were very lucky that they could go around the ZBA and directly to the Planning Commission and board because of just what you said. The ZBA has a different set of factors that they have to weigh, and it makes it a little bit more stringent of a process. I'll just use that word. The Planning Commission and the Township Board, because this is a PB, have the ability to consider different factors. They don't need a hardship. They need to have a good explanation, and you guys need to agree with them. So this is an easier route, though it takes 2 stops, because there isn't a whole list of findings of fact that have to be made.
Right.
So, they did not necessarily come in and say, we have a hardship. They're coming in and saying, we have a new business opportunity. We need this in order to continue to thrive, and would you please approve it? Oh, and just on one of the signs, not on 2. And so that's kind of where we're at with this. So you're correct, and that was discussed. And so this is just a completely different process.
Yeah.
They can arrive at a similar outcome, but it's a little easier to go this way.
Right. So, Mr. Supervisor, I tend to agree with the Planning Commission. I believe the building is large enough and the setback is far enough, and 59 traffic moves fast enough that it warrants the oversized sign.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Powell. Anyone have question or comment for the board? Mr. Ruggles, anything else? You were at PC?
I would say that I agree with Mr. Powell. I think that it's appropriate, in my opinion.
Very good. Can we get a motion?
Sure. Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve Item 9D, the planned business development agreement amendment with Coles to allow the requested sign.
I have a motion, looking for support.
Support.
I have support from Mr. Roman. I have motion and support. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. 9E, request to approve Michigan Employment Retirement System MERS Defined Benefit Plan Adoption Agreement Addendum. From time to time, things are ever evolving at MERS and this process. Catherine?
So back in December of 2020, the original MERS agreement was adopted. It was about a 40-page document. It addressed every scenario you could think of. But as time goes on and policies change, union contracts change, some things need to be tweaked. So that's literally what this is. This is a very small amendment to the original adopted MERS agreement. And the amendment is required because we've now added a short-term and a long-term disability policy, which never existed prior to this. So literally, we just checked a box indicating that credited service would not be granted to an employee who was on a short-term or long-term disability. This excludes work comp injuries. That's not what we're talking about. This is somebody who may be out for 6 months, would, and appropriately so, would have qualified. However, because they're not actually meeting the definition of earning credited service, which under the MERS contract would be required to work 75 to 80 hours a month, they would not earn the credited service.
So say, for example, you were skiing out in Colorado and you fell down and broke your collarbone and your leg and your ankle all simultaneously, and you couldn't come in as a do engineering services for the township anymore if you were on paid employee of the township, full-time employee of the township, I might add, that if you wanted to maintain your MERS credit, you would have to get off your short-term or long-term disability, you would have to pay a small percentage, and it is a small percentage, to the township in order to keep those credits earning, is that?
Not exactly.
Not exactly?
So you would, each employee here has a bank of time, and it accumulates, especially sick time, accumulates, rolls over from year to year. So that employee could exhaust all of their sick time for as long as they need it for that particular injury, and they would still earn credited service because that was their earned bank time.
Correct.
However, once they go on to a short-term or long-term disability, they basically don't get a paycheck from the township. They're getting a payment from the insurance company to help subsidize their income while they're off. So in that scenario, it doesn't meet the definition of working 75 to 80 hours a month, which is the minimum, in order to get credited service for the month.
Okay, so they wouldn't be able to buy credited hours?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was clear because
Yeah.
there was a lot going on with this thing.
Right.
And I understand it's with the short-term, long-term. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, you kind of lost me. So once your sick bank is up, you would go on workers' comp?
So, no, we're talking about injuries or illnesses that are not work-related. Okay, so something didn't happen on the job.
Non-work related.
Like I
Exactly.
was talking if you went skiing and busted yourself up on your own time, on your own dime,
Okay, so there is no work comp.
no.
Well,
Correct.
if you're on a work comp leave, you do earn credited service. This is a different scenario.
The skiing incident, there wouldn't be any work comp.
Correct.
Okay, so for that person that's off, if they have sick bank, they can use it.
Yes.
Once it's gone, they're on disability, and hopefully they've got a policy.
So no, the township has purchased short-term and long-term disability policies for all employees.
Okay, and
That's
so-
something new.
Okay, so that helps compensate them, but in order to receive MERS credit hours now, they would need to pay the township
No,
some type of
They're not,
employee?
you can't buy the hours.
They've got to
they're
work.
not
No, you
eligible.
can't buy I'm not talking about buying hours.
Yeah.
I'm talking about making your contribution.
You wouldn't make the contribution either because you're not, it's a pre-tax deduction from your paycheck. You're not getting a paycheck.
Okay, so in that instance, there is no service credit earned at
Exactly.
all? Okay,
Exactly,
now let's
unless-
say you're on work comp, it's a work-related.
Okay.
Now, if it's a work comp related, do they get service time for being off at all?
Yes,
They do.
yes.
Okay. And are they making an employee contribution?
They will be required to make an employee contribution.
Because I understood that that's what the amendment was
No.
those on workers' comp will now be making a contribution.
So that is part, yes, that is part of it, but they've always gotten credited service while they were on a work comp leave. They will be required to make a contribution like they would have if they were working
But they
because
did before?
sorry,
Did they have to make it before this amendment?
no, MERS actually changed their policy on that.
Okay.
And it's up to the township to work with the employee to determine how they'll make that payment. They can make it while they're off, they can make it when they come back to work, or if they're unable to ever come back to work, they can make a payment at that time.
Kathy, is the contribution based on what they normally earned before they were injured?
It's based on, let me think for a second. Yes, it would be. It's based on the percentage that comes out of their paycheck. So if it's 5%, then it would be 5% based on what they would have normally paid if they were working, yes.
Okay, got it. Thank
So
you.
basically, it freezes the MERS credit hours because we've got this new policy, which is short-term and long-term. Those are new policies, right? That we have.
Yes.
That we purchased. So
Yes,
Mike goes out and skis into a cliff or a tree,
Just Mike.
just with this Mike.
so there's no change to to what's happening currently.
Yeah.
There's just a change to the documentation that we have to provide to MERS.
Yeah, okay.
That's what I was gonna say. I think we like way overcomplicated it.
It just, but it freezes
we
their
got-
credit, like,
We
today it would
squirrel.
freeze if they don't come back for 3 months, they're froze.
Until they come back to
So
work, yeah.
when they come back to work, let's
They
say
don't
they go
lose
to.
anything, they're just
Yeah,
froze.
Yeah, they're froze, but they'll have to
they're
go
froze.
to, once they retire, let's say Sean's getting ready to retire, he'll have to make that 3 months back up at the back end of.
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
Can you start over with your example, maybe?
Okay.
Because we just, I don't know.
So, there's not a change to how the employees are being treated currently. It's just that there was a change in the benefits that we offer to our employees. So when the amendment was first drafted, we didn't have a short-term, long-term disability policy like we do now.
Right.
We did a self-insured piece that we paid a little bit to the employee if they were off for a I don't want to say short-term disability, it's for a shorter period of time. However, now we have a true policy that is a short-term disability policy and a long-term disability policy. It's through an insurance company called Equitable. The township pays for this benefit, the employee does not. We negotiated these benefits through collective bargaining so that all of our employees have these in their union contracts. So that's what has changed. That didn't exist when this original document was created. And it's not unusual that we would have things as time progresses and little policies or benefits, evolve. Then we may have to tweak this agreement that we have with MERS that was established almost 3 years ago.
So the contracts that this board approved in the past had this additional benefit to our employees, and it made sense for us to do that in the event of somebody had a catastrophic injury. Does not have any impact at all, workman's comp. It only has if you did something on your own, you're out rollerblading and you crack your spine or something, whatever it is, or water skiing, Yeah, you do that too, don't you? Okay, yeah, okay.
Well, what I was confused at, so if it stops and you're not getting the credits, let's say today, you go 2 months, you gotta make that time back to get you, that's how I understand it now.
No, you don't make the time up. It's gone. You didn't earn it. You didn't work. So when you come back to work, you start earning again.
Yeah, I know.
So if you were only off for 2 months, then you lost your credited service for 2 months. But when you come back, it just starts earning again.
So if you missed 3 months.
Yeah, it would offset
just
the
have to
retirement.
work
You'd have
another
to
3
3 months,
months.
that's what I
That's
was
it,
saying.
yeah.
So you would have to work 3 months at the end of the deal. Like let's say I was gonna retire at the end of the month.
Okay.
Then if I was off 2 months, I'd have to work, I get injured, now I have to make that back up. It's April, I go May and June. I have to go 2 more months than I anticipated when I go to retire.
If it's for vesting purposes, yeah.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, yes.
That's what I was trying to.
Okay, I understand now.
And just clear that in my head, because that's how I understood the memo, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Good? Mr. Paul?
Yeah, I just wondered if the townships, does the township still pay their percentage share to the, to MERS, even though the person's not working?
No.
No, okay,
Not on a,
on that time.
And our short term goes for how long, and then it goes into long term, correct?
6 months. So the first month, the employee is required to use their PTO bank. And then so from month 2 through up to month 6, so for 5 more months.
Okay.
Then they have the short-term disability policy. And at month 6, if they still can't come back to work, then it goes to a long-term disability
that's-
policy.
80% of their pay, right?
I believe it's 60.
And then long term's more?
No, that was long-term,
Oh,
sorry.
that's long term. Short term, how long?
Short-term is $450 a week.
Okay.
so these were benefits that we did not have for our employees in the past, which was kind of a safety net to put out there for them, so they would have something. Any other questions from the board?
No, I just have a comment. I just want to thank Kathy for talking with me the other day. I'm not saying I'm an expert on MERS by any means in this whole idea, but talking to Kathy kind of answered some of the questions that you guys brought up tonight. So thank you.
Welcome.
Any questions, comments? Mr. Roman?
Yeah, no, that was,
Mr. Roman?
I'm sorry.
Want to make a motion?
Motion to adopt the MERS Defined Benefit Plan Agreement Addendum.
Motion, looking for support? Motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you, Kathy, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, first reading ordinance to amend Chapter 18, Article 4, Property Maintenance of the White Lake Township Code of Ordinances. This is something that came to the township's attention because what it boils down to is, and I'm going to use an example. Well, first of all, this will hopefully end some frustration from Mr. Hudson. In the past, when we have what I'll call nuisance lawns, and we have a cast of what I call the regulars, wouldn't you agree?
I would.
And the process is so long and drawn out that it just seems rather argumentative and seems like an act of futility. With adopting this, we will publish monthly, correct, Counselor?
It will be 10 days prior to the beginning of each month, starting in May through September.
Okay. And with that notice being published, it now gives the township to the ability to enforce without going through this long, drawn-out process. It's really primarily, I think it's really designed for the habituals, I'll call it.
Yeah, we generally have, I have, I'm going to say 20 of regular customers that we have to go through and during the time this ordinance is in effect, basically what we have to do, we start in May. If your grass is out of control, we send you a letter letting you know you have 10 days to cut the grass. So when we send that letter, you have 3, 4, or 5 days for mail to get there. It gives them 10 days to cut it. They don't cut it. You're at day 15 now. And I have to schedule our contractor to go out there. There's another, 2, 3 days for them to get out, depending on how busy they are. So by the time these ordinance violations are finally cut, it's well over the 8 inches and you're up to, 12, 14 inches of grass, and it takes its toll on the neighbors, our contractors, and it creates an unwanted nuisance for the township. This just simplifies it so that we can, the beginning of each month, we can automatically set up our contractor to go in, cut these properties down, and then bill the resident for the services.
This serves as public notice to all of those people. I kind of came across this with in a couple other communities, that this is how they take care of the habituals, I'll call them, okay? And I don't want to name any, but there's a few in particular on M59 that grind my gizzard because they're in a very high profile area, and trying to get them to cut the grass is like pulling hen's teeth. So this will set us up and put us in a position, and we can mind their maintenance for them if we have to, and we bill them. That's it.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So if you publish on the 1st every month, that speeds up the timeline? That's what you're explaining to us?
So it does. The way we currently do it now, we have the option to publish this ordinance as it stands prior to the amendments in March, letting them know that this ordinance is in effect beginning May 1st. The way it's done currently, it generally comes in through telephone calls, or most of our complaints are resident-driven. I'll go out, inspect the property, send a letter. Again, it takes, 13 days or so from the day I send the letter to,
So will there be no more letter?
there will be no more letter. We'll publish this ordinance, the language, 10 days prior to the beginning of every month, all the way through September. And that serves as our notice to the residents that you must have your grass cut lower than 8 inches, and keep it that way through the entire month. So it allows us to go in as many times as needed during that time frame to maintain the properties. Unfortunately, there are some that just
Don't mow at all?
don't mow at all, and it really is a nuisance to neighbors, and blight breeds crime, so.
Is this for the entire township regardless of zoning?
It is. So also, in this, the way our current ordinance is written, anything greater than 2.5 acres is not subject to this. We did amend that minimum acreage down to 1 acre. It's almost impossible.
Below 1 acre then?
Yeah, anything an acre and below, you're supposed to cut it. That just keeps in line with our zoning districts. It was near impossible to find properties, up to 2.5 acres and have them cut that.
So if there's somebody that looks like they're not mowing, will you visit them and let them know, like, hey, we're coming to mow your grass?
Well, so generally what happens is the way it is now, they would have a notice that you have this time to do it.
Now there's no more letter though, so.
Correct. I generally would not show up at their house and let them know.
So the only thing that'll happen is one day the mowing crew will just show up.
Correct. And I generally go out with our mowing crew. When they go out, like I'll show up at the home with them in case there's any issues. We've had a couple issues in the past, but those were known issues that we were going into. Like I said, we have a group of 20 or so that are habitual, and I don't have many more than that. So I don't anticipate it being a huge change for those people. But for the other ones, they would not get the notice. We would publish it on our webpage as well as a publication of our choosing, I guess, correct?
Okay.
This,
I just have two thoughts on it. Would it be beneficial to perhaps send these people that were aware of a letter the first time in May and then continue to publish so that they know we're coming and this change is happening? Because, we don't have a community newspaper, things like that. So just for your benefit, to kind of decrease hostility, maybe we should notify them the first time and then continue to publish that this is a change in the ordinance, and, please be aware that this is happening if you kind of have an idea of who this will affect on a regular basis. And then my second comment is, what happens if we mow down something special, or we break something, or there's something in the yard that shouldn't have been cut?
So we don't have them, we have them cut the grass itself. We don't have them go into flower beds generally and cut that. I mean, if we go up to the home and
I'm just kind of curious, because sometimes people have special things. What if we damage something, or what if we cut something that they didn't
well,
wish to have cut?
that I don't have an answer. I couldn't tell you if someone said this.
That's why I kind of thought maybe it's a
this
good
weed
idea
is
to
special to me.
communicate with them. Maybe we should communicate with them once and say, hey, we're going to come do this and cut, give them a letter, a warning, a notification in May, and then continue to not a letter every month, then we'll publish it
Well,
after that.
she does have some point, that maybe this first time around, we'll send out that there's been a change in the ordinance, and we can give them fair warning.
I have no issue
But I will
with
tell you that because I've been around some of the things that have gone on, and some of these people, they don't care.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, I'm
So
well
there-
aware that there's
yeah.
places that need to be cut, and
There
I'm
could be
fine
all
with
kind
that,
of,
but just maybe we should, I
and
think it
even when we
goes
did it the old
smoothly
way-
if we let them know.
Yeah, even when we did it the old way, there was from time to time obstacles in the yard. It's just what it is. I mean, these people just flat out just don't care.
And that is an issue with these people that do not cut their grass and take general care of their property. There is stuff all over the yard. So our contractors know that, and they try to be as cautious as possible, but like they've run over metal objects in the grass that it's been so high you don't see it. And they add that to the bill for the resident for maintenance of their equipment. So,
Sure.
as far as
I just
running
think it'd be
over
a good
something
idea
special,
to
I don't.
notify them at least once that this is a change.
We can do that through the old Spinal Column, which was PW Publications, I think.
Yeah, but does anybody read that or get that?
No,
Yeah, but
no.
that was the question I had.
They
Well,
don't.
I want to say that the whole purpose of this is to streamline this process, and I understand making them aware of it, but we will legally publish it. If we decide this first year to immediately we start to see problems, or we know who the problematic people are, and we have a preemptive mailer to them, because you already know who the regular customers are, and then that's it, they're on their own after that.
Yeah,
Because they're just not, they don't care. The notices oftentimes when we go to the house
No
is
response.
down in the grass, and we run over it with the mower, okay, because they don't care, okay?
Well, I can give an example. One of the commercial buildings on 59, how long was it, Jason, that I got calls, the supervisor's office got called? We had to track them. The maintenance company was in Texas. We found out halfway in the
that was-
summer that it was in Ohio, it was an equity, or Ontario, that was an equity group. And by the time, you didn't get a cut till in August, and it was about a foot high.
It was taller than that, and
And
it was just,
constant
yeah,
complaints.
and this was one of the catalysts that really turned this one, because when you have people that just blatantly don't care what things look like in White Lane Township, in particular in what I call higher profile areas, no one wants to look at it. I get the calls, he gets the call that I get, he gets the same call that I get. And when we don't respond, people think we're pretty inept. So that's why we want to enact this, so that we have the ability to remedy these problems. Mr. Hudson has a very sympathetic hand to persons who may have some personal
Right, if there's a
event.
disability
And
or
he's
a
given
sickness
I
or
give him a
something,
very
then that's different.
broad beam in those powers to decide what's what. And we have been known to, try to do things to help residents if they, for some reason, they have an issue. But just to be, for the township, just to become their lawn service, no go, okay? I've got property, I cut it. Everybody else here has a lawn, we cut it. And they should be expected to do the same thing. But again, Mr. Hudson has a lot of lateral movement.
And we'll use all available sources. We can put it on the sign up front. We can use our social media, Facebook page. We can put it on our webpage. We'll also publish it in what used to be the Spinal Column. So we'll have it posted on numerous sites so that everyone knows this is coming. But for those habitual ones,
I think
we can
Just
send
be
them an
smoother if you
initial
just
letter.
let them know once.
Well,
Yeah.
the point I was trying to make too is, how about somebody that's not habitual, so then they're not aware, and then all of a sudden the mowing crew shows up.
Okay,
So-
well, that goes into Mr. Hudson's lateral authority, okay, that he can look at these scenarios, as he does many times, on an individual basis. If he has a case that comes up at a house that he's never had a problem with before, that gets his attention, and he approaches that a little differently.
I mean,
Have some discretion.
I do go to the homes and try to speak on most of our ordinance issues. I try to speak personally with the property owners, if not by phone and in person. So I give them every opportunity to take care of the problem before we have to. So that won't change in this. Like, I will still attempt to notify them, let them know that, hey, there's an issue, and have them correct it themselves so the township doesn't have to. Because those people that we do bill, there's a majority of them that don't pay. So we end up placing it on their tax rolls. I have one on Orman Road that we've cut probably 10 times, and they just don't care. But they get mad when we show up every time, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll place those on the tax roll, but I'll still have a personal touch with it, and I'll notify them in the beginning of the year that this is the way things will happen from here on out.
Yeah, I think that's something we can live with. It kind of gives them shoots up a flare and lets them know that we're making a change in how we are going to operate, but yet complying with.
No, there's a
Trying to-
need for, I mean,
Yeah.
as, you know, I've gone knocking thousands of doors, and there's been weeds taller than I am at homes. So, I mean, there is a need for it in certain areas.
Mr. Roman,
I was just curious, when you send out a letter, do you usually send it out certified mail?
No, everything's sent out first class. The only time we send out certified mail is if we have some sort of court order that we're going to enforce or something of that nature. But I don't send out this,
You don't use certified?
no.
So are you going to, so I agree with the rest of you all that a letter should go out to first-time offenders. And I would hope that in that letter, it would state that this is the only warning you're going to receive for future violations. So, I mean, if that's not in there, can you put that in there?
Yep.
absolutely.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
It'll remedy the problem, it'll make it more streamlined for Mr. Hudson. And
Yeah.
again, the people that are the habituals, especially when we have the commercial where we're playing a shell game, trying to find out who actually owns the property, then, oh, well, we own it, but we don't manage it. Well, who manages it? Well, we think this company does, but we're not sure. So this company does, we're in
And
Toronto.
I can tell you that the rental ordinance has helped out tremendously with a lot of our ordinance violations right now. I'm able to contact, Sherry does a great job of inputting all of the rental information in there. So I'm able to call those property owners, let them know, hey, you have an issue. And so far, I've had pretty good compliance with any issues on those type of properties. So I'm just thinking that this will streamline it and get these properties taken care of, more so for neighboring residents than anything else.
Okay, Mr. Bowles.
I would like to maybe address a little different tack. Let's say it's a 1 acre parcel that has never been mowed, and it's part of a field, and it's always been a field, a wooded field or whatever. Is this going to prompt letters to go out to people that have just a field with no home on it, never been built, never been maintained at all?
So the way I have addressed those in the past, because we do have some vacant properties in subdivisions that every once in a while flare up and someone gets upset with it, I will try to contact the property owner. If it's wooded and it's never been cut, I generally do not enforce that type of ordinance with it. But if it is a field where it's not wooded, I will contact the property owner and ask them to cut back a 10 to 15 foot square around the neighboring property. It seems to work better that way. I haven't had to have a lot of enforcements where we have to cut the entire property.
Okay.
So I do have some discretion with those individuals, but yeah, if it's wooded, and it's never been maintained ever, I generally do not enforce this type of
At
maintenance
that
on
point,
it.
it's not practical.
Yeah.
One additional scenario, because we're having a number of new subdivisions being constructed. So you end up with a new subdivision, the roads have been put in, but the lots have not been developed yet, haven't been built on yet. So you end up with 35 half-acre parcels or 1 acre parcels within a development, I would assume that you don't go in and mow the subdivision and then bill the subdivision owner.
That has happened and probably will happen again this year. We have a subdivision that the builder has started work on, and just kind of vacated some of them. And it became an issue with the homeowner association, so they reached out to both myself and Nick Spencer. So then we contact the builder or whomever is responsible for those sites and have them knock down those weeds.
Okay.
So we don't make them cut the entire subdivision, but if we get a complaint and it's a valid complaint, we will have the builder or whomever's responsible cut it back.
Good, thank you. That answered my question.
All right. Okay. I'd like to move on with this.
I'd like to make a motion.
Please do.
I'd like to make a motion, first reading ordinance to amend Chapter 18, Article 5, I believe, right?
Chapter 8, Article 4,
For,
Section.
property
8-1.
maintenance of the White Lake Township Code of Ordinances.
And move to second reading?
Move to second reading.
Second reading.
Can we add with board comments that, so it'll address that a letter will go
With
out?
first-time offender notification
With
letter.
first-time offender notification.
Yeah,
That's good.
that's good.
Meets the intent. Okay. Motion,
I'll support that.
support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay. Next item. First reading of ordinance to amend Chapter 12, Community Development, Article 2, Corridor Improvement Authority of the White Lake Township Code of Ordinances. As you know, we have established a Corridor Improvement Authority, and there's some necessary housekeeping to keep it moving along. Mr. O'Neill.
That's a pretty good summary and done far more expeditiously than I could ever do it. But just to give you a little bit more information, back on October 17th of 2006, the township adopted a Corridor Improvement Authority ordinance. For those of you who may recall that, board was appointed and no real further legislative action was taken. A tax increment finance plan was never adopted and sent over to Oakland County for their consideration. And so it sort of withered halfway through the process. As we all know now, the township has picked up kind of where we left off and appointed a new Corridor Improvement Authority board that has met and is working on their bylaws and working on the Corridor Improvement Authority plan and tax capture plan. And so really the next step in the process is to bring that 2006 ordinance language into, kind of into a more updated version. Some minor amendments have happened with state law. Parcel numbers have changed, as you'll see in the red line version overall of that time. And so these are really very minor revisions in order to make this compliant. And so tonight, for your consideration, is the first reading of this this amendment. I'd like to thank Lisa for her assistance with compiling these amendments, as well as Dave Heber and Dick Carlisle, who all played a role in this process as well. And actually, I don't think I did anything because I was out of town when they did all this work. So I'm reading to you and explaining this to you, but I do agree with what's been proposed. And again, it's very minor in nature, and it just kind of helps us take the next step with the Corridor Improvement Authority. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them or have Lisa answer them.
Necessary paperwork to move this forward. Any questions, comments? Mr. Roman?
Yeah, on page 154, well,
Which
section,
154.
yeah,
I agree.
I'm going to retract that number. Under section 12.24, it talks about treasurer and secretary compensation. Just curious if
You're not
anyone,
getting,
what's that?
that would be treasurer and secretary compensation for the Corridor Improvement Authority Board.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I'm just curious if that's been discussed, who's going to do it, how much you're going to pay them?
So I think at this point, we intend at the Corridor Improvement Authority to keep it very simple. Our department will staff the CIA, no employees will be brought on, and no one will be compensated. When it refers to the treasurer,
Yeah.
we'll ask you. We'll try to bring you in to assist us with any treasury-type duties I think that was the thought. So there's a
Okay.
chair and a vice chair. There are no other officers at this time on the Corridor Improvement Authority board. So they're going to lean on the existing staff
Okay.
for their
Because I
support.
asked Independence, my deputy used to work for Independence as a CIA, and her comment to me was, she didn't think they paid a treasurer.
I don't think most do. I mean, if you're a huge city, if you're Grand Rapids or the city of Detroit and your authority is just a gigantic area with a huge tax base, hundreds of businesses, thousands of people living in it, perhaps it's too burdensome for the existing staff to just take on. So they may have to bring on, in the case of a Corridor Improvement Authority staff or a DDA staff, but that is probably more the exception than the rule in the communities that I'm familiar with that have corridor improvement authorities or downtown development authorities. They all have boards that are appointed and have some authority or recommending authority, but I think they generally lean on the municipal staff in either the township, city, or village to, take care of a lot of the work, behind the scenes work for the authority.
Okay, I mean, I don't know, I've never done a CIA, and I know most of us have not as well, so I was just curious about that language.
The language is really meant to mirror what the state, it's really taking language from the act at the state level, so we're not in conflict with it.
Gotcha.
And then the bylaws that they're working on now that we'll certainly furnish you all with a copy of are really meant to kind of frame how they're going to operate. They're kind of operating rules. But as you all know, they can't hire any staff without your approval. They don't have a budget to do so. They're not even going to have a budget to do some of the initial things that they need in order to establish themselves without getting some at least upfront seed money to fund the authority from the township board that can be expensed or paid back to the township. That would be an appropriate expenditure because when they start off, there is zero capture and there's a whole lot of administrative work up front. Just the compilation of the plan is, I think, $35,000. So that is paid for by the township and can be paid back by the Corridor Improvement Authority when the captures dollars start rolling in. So this is just sort of setting, kind of framing it so it's consistent with the state act and state law. And really, any major decision like that to hire staff or start paying those involved would have to come to this township board.
All right, well, that's good information. I mean, I know Rick and I sit on a whole bunch of lake boards, and we act as presidents and treasurers of those lake boards, but, we don't take any compensation.
Right.
So I just thought that was odd, but you explained it well. Thank you.
A lot of this language is what is set up by the state of Michigan to comply with this. So again, these aren't things we can necessarily negotiate with per se. So we have to adopt the guidelines and move forward. And it's an ever-learning process and I'm ever-learning something. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Well, not really. Mr. O'Neill already kind of touched on my comments. I was going to say the same thing, that statutorily, they can be employees. And if you recall, when we created the committee and talked about who was going to be on and be voted on the members, we talked about that they could have, statutorily, it says they could have our benefits and offices and all those kinds of things. And, we discussed that's never going to happen. So we decided then that they wouldn't be compensated. So I understand that you're trying to be in line with the statute, but do we have to have it in here? Because that does kind of confuse things. Can we take it out of this? Because they aren't going to ever be compensated according to their bylaws?
I would probably look to Lisa to help answer that, but my initial reaction would at least be, they can't, even if it's in here, it just presents an opportunity for you to make that decision in the future. 30 years from now, something, has significantly changed. It gives you the ability to do that. But again, you approve everyone's budget. So there will never be, at least for the next many years, any budget to support, like you mentioned, the hiring of full-time personnel that staffs just the Corridor Improvement Authority or giving them benefits, things like that. So I don't know, Lisa, what your thoughts are on that.
So you understand, sorry.
I read the statute. So I understand that this is in line with the statute when we addressed this a month or two ago. I'm just wondering, is it confusing to have it in here? But you're saying you're going to present us their bylaws soon?
Yes.
And that will be clarified in the bylaws?
I don't know that the bylaws get into, it talks about how they operate and who what officers are. And again, it presents an opportunity for there to be a treasurer or to be a secretary, but because it's broad, but we'll certainly present you their operating rules or their bylaws. But I don't know that it gets into, hiring of personnel, things like that. It may touch on it a little bit. I'm trying to
I don't know
recall.
if we need to button it up or we don't need to button it up.
I don't think we need to button it up, and if I can explain why, this is already in the ordinance that was adopted many, many years ago. What we tried to do was only amend what we needed to amend to not make too many waves. You had to go through a lot of steps when you first adopted this, including sending it up to the Secretary of State, which is why we're careful in the wording of the actual district. We didn't touch the district, and we made that clear in this ordinance to say, all we're doing is changing the numbers that attach to the district. But in the section you're concerned about, it's the section that talks about the governing board, the offices that you can have, and the duties associated with those offices. So I think it's important to have that in there. And every one of them says the board may employ. So I'm not concerned about there being any confusion there.
Okay, does that answer that?
Yeah, I mean, if Lisa thinks it's okay.
I'd like to make
Board,
the
the board
motion.
has the final say-so on anything anyway, so in theory, somebody could say, we want to do this, but it has to come before this board. This board has to approve it. That's the end of the line.
I might point out that there are corridor improvement authorities that are huge. I mean, they actually handle site plan approvals and everything else within that corridor approval district or that area. And so that's why the state has that in there. It gives them the opportunity to do that. And 30 years from now, we may have a bustling city up and down M59 in the corridor. So I think it's okay to be in there. It just has to be monitored by this board to make sure it doesn't happen.
And future boards.
In future boards,
Yeah.
correct.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, please do.
I'd like to make a motion for first reading ordinance to amend Chapter 12, Community Development, Article 2, Corridor Improvement Authority of the White Lake Township Code of Ordinances.
Move to second.
Move to second.
I have motion. Support. I have motion, I have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, thank you. Request to approve Elizabeth Lake Road Water Main Extension. Michael.
Switch over here. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. As the board knows, DLZ's been working on plans for improvements of Elizabeth Lake Road corridor for the Civic Center development. Part of that is going to include extending the water main to the extent of the development to kind of get that out of the way. At the request of the supervisor and planning, we pulled the water main component out of the overall project plans. A couple of benefits with that. We can get going on the project quicker because this one was easier to permit than the overall road improvements. It also kind of frees you from the burden, any of the burdens of the grant that we'd be beholden to otherwise. There's certain restrictions on that money. We went through the proper steps to make sure we could remove this component without compromising the grant. So that's why we're comfortable moving forward with this. Bids were received last week, Thursday. We had very good participation. We got 8 bids in total. I was very happy to see that. Low bidder was a company called HMC. I'm not familiar with. Unfortunately, they were missing some critical information on the bid. We felt it was a little bit incomplete, and we weren't comfortable moving forward with that. Second low bid was submitted by Superior Excavating, company that's very familiar to us and hopefully this board. They've done a lot of work for the township recently. The Hulbert Oak Ridge sewer extensions. They did all the New Hope underground utilities. They've done a really good job on the projects we've been involved with them on lately. So certainly was happy to see them participate, and our recommendation ultimately will be for awarding them the work. Their bid amount was $217,989.50. We did look at an alternate for a plastic pipe material, kind of hoping be some cost savings and/or maybe even time savings, because this project, we're trying to streamline it and get it approved quickly. ultimately, talking to the contractor, they don't believe that that's going to be a limiting factor. They've got a lot of pipe on hand that they'll be able to use. And DPS felt more comfortable moving forward with ductile iron. So that's the recommendation that we'll go with, then is the ductile iron bid.
Superior excavation.
Correct.
Yeah, and I agree. I think I'd rather see ductile iron in that particular area myself. I'm a
Yep.
proponent of, I mean, plastic has its place, but in this particular area, I think ductile would be a better approach.
I'm sorry, Rick, I can't hear you. What did you say?
I'm sorry, ductile iron, I think, would be a better approach than plastic in this particular area, due to the nature and the rest of the pipe in that area it is ductile, so we may as well keep the same material running consistently throughout that area. Plastic pipe is great for directional boring. It's good for a lot of things, but I feel more comfortable going with the ductile iron. I think it's a benefit to the township in the long run. Mr. Powell, your comment?
Yes, please, thank you. Could you just describe verbally, I was hoping there'd be a map here, what area of Elizabeth Lake Road are we talking about putting this main down?
Sure. So, I don't know if Sean, I don't have a map in there. You can bring up an aerial if you like, but I'll describe it briefly. When the library went in, they brought water main down Elizabeth Lake Road. They connected tied into the stub across the street at the assisted living, is it the Mercy Assisted Living? So we'd be extending from that point on the west side of the road, then south, across the driveway for Stanley Park to get it out of any of those improvements that'll be there. And then we do have a couple of stubs coming into the property that'll be available for future connection for the Civic Center development. The one on the north is a little bit longer than the one on the south because we're bringing it by the shared access that was planned for when the library development was put in. So we'll get past that point where that driveway will eventually connect into the library site, and then it'll be available for the Civic Center use.
The intention was to try to get this utility work out of the way and ahead of the road construction.
Great idea.
So we're not going backwards.
I also want to point out here to the board that these prices, although not unusual in this climate, are horrendous historically for water main costs. We used to analyze, or we used to put water main in for $80 a lineal foot, and their price is $425 per lineal foot, which is just terrible. So
I thought we were doing good, Mike. It's below the engineer's projection here.
So it's just, and I ran into this on a couple of my projects as well, just blew the budget all apart. And it is what it is, though. I was hoping if they had it in stock that they were going to give it to us at the price maybe they bought the pipe for, but obviously that's not happening. So
Unfortunately, with 8 bids, you can tell, I mean, there's interest.
They're
so-
very similar.
Right, yeah.
Exactly.
There is a margin, but the reality of it is a lot of them are right in the same ballpark.
And do I read that there's really only $5,000 difference between alternate one with the HDPE or with the plastic pipe versus, or the SDR 11 versus the ductile? Is that,
I think,
am I reading that properly?
Yeah, it's not much. It's in that ballpark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm in total agreement with you,
Yeah,
Mr.
but
Supervisor.
it's only about 7 to 10, and plus there's some fitting issues and other conversions and other things. I'm personally, from my underground experience, much more comfortable.
I'm good with that. Maybe on our site, if we run it into our site around, we can take some advantage of plastic pipe, but in this case, I totally agree.
Okay, all right. Mr. Roman?
You know, Mr. Noble and I went to check out our roundabouts today. And interestingly, we ran into a concrete.
Cement.
Cement. It was a concrete, what do you call them? Contractor. And what he mentioned to us is that he's already bidding on 2024 projects now.
Up to 2026.
And he said, his point was, if he was bidding on a 2025 contract right now, he could bid a lot less. But he's busy through 2024 already. So I'm not surprised
Yeah, I don't know.
that these came in and where they came in.
Right.
Mike, how far south are we going on Elizabeth Lake Road? I know Sean had that overhead up, but are we coming past the park entrance?
We're coming just a little bit south of the park entrance, trying to get out of the way, because we'll as part of the Elizabeth Lake Road improvements, we'll redo the approach into Stanley Park. So we want to get past that limits of work.
Okay, so it did make sense to stop there then?
Yeah, I mean, that was the direction that,
Now, there's nothing past that to
Nothing
serve
further
anyway.
south.
certainly master plan would show it extending further, but
But this way, the thought process was we would get it to a point of where it'd be minimum disruption to future park improvements and things along that nature, should it decide to go down, continue down the road.
Right.
Yeah.
And it'll service the park little pavilion down there. There'll be a tap somewhere off of there. You know, it's hard to say exactly. We'll figure that out as we go through the process. But nonetheless, and, you know, technically, you know, our ordinance says we're supposed to take utilities to the end of our property. This pretty well takes it pretty darn close to that end.
Yeah.
So,
Last question for you. So HMC does not, they don't get the nod because they messed up their application. I'm just curious, do you guys contact them and let them know why they didn't
Yeah.
get the winning bid?
we did contact them, let them know they were missing components. They did send us some stuff today, late in the process. I just don't feel comfortable moving forward with it.
Okay, but at least you contacted them and let them know.
We
what happened.
did, we did.
Okay,
And
thank you.
everybody that submits a bid submits a bid bond, and we have to return those at the end of the bids anyways. And yes, sometime we'll have to just explain what the deal is.
Yeah, because, you know, in the future, they may want to bid again, and at least they know what they did wrong.
Right.
So hopefully they won't make that mistake again.
Right.
Mr. Powell, you'd like to make a motion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. Let's see if I can word this properly.
I didn't mention it, Mr. Powell, but if you're going to make a motion, would you be able to include in the contingency just for unforeseens? I'd recommended an 8% in the recommendation letter.
Yes, I was going to actually suggest 10%, but I saw that you had 8%. What page, do you have a recommended
I didn't do a
motion?
total value. I can do that real quick if you want.
Well, I think it's here. Oh, no, I don't have the 10% onto it. So, Mr. Supervisor, I move that this board hire or award the contract to Superior Excavating for the extension of the water main along Elizabeth Lake Road for the township project for a base bid price of $217,989.50 with a $20,000 contingency fee for a total budgeted price of $237,989.50.
And this will come out of improvement revolving.
Yes, and I will add that language as well.
Okay, we have motion, looking for support. Motion, support, all in favor?
Just a
Hold
quick
on.
question.
Yes.
So what is the contingency for?
It's for any unforeseens. Anytime you're doing underground construction, it's good to have because you might run into who knows what.
An Indian burial
A
ground?
utility that you didn't know about or,
Wouldn't be enough.
Okay, it's for unknowns.
yeah, it's for unknowns.
And to support it, this is a unit price contract. So the contractor only gets paid for the work he does. So if he has less lineal footage, then our contract will be a little less. If there's a little bit more, or if he runs into problems, and he gets only paid for the work that he's actually done.
Right.
But you certainly don't want to stop his work in the middle of the program. So that's why the contingency is a great idea.
In case there's an issue. You know,
Right.
for example, I'll give you an example. A great example was when the water main was hooked up to the library.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a directional bore under the road. It ended up being, we ran into a rock there the size of a Volkswagen. So we had to move it over and cut the road. So that's part of the contingency,
Contingency.
okay?
Gotcha.
The unknowns of construction. And underground is completely unknown for the most part. I have motion, I have support, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Another step forward for the township.
amen.
Thank you.
Mr. Supervisor,
yes.
there's one more component to that that I
Yes.
wanted to bring up.
The engineering?
Yeah, attached to that letter you've got in front of you is a DLZ proposal for the construction engineering services that would be associated with, which will
Yes, it
be
is.
survey layout, inspection, contract management, all the things that are related to kind of managing that contract.
$18,300.
Yeah, it's a rate schedule not to exceed, so, and we're basing that on, certain anticipated,
Correct.
Duration of construction and those type of things. I know that Superior is a good contractor. They usually come in and try to do the job quick and get out, so I feel comfortable with this price. Hopefully, if they do a good job, we can be under that price.
Okay, any questions to the board on this part of this?
Is the 18 included in the 217?
No, it is not.
Separate.
Oh, it is separate.
I read it as being included.
So did I.
Yeah. Because it says, this proposal includes $18,300, so I thought it was included.
Yeah, it's coming out of
in
the
proposal.
217, Lufkin.
We don't use the contingency.
That's what it says.
Is that unknown?
Okay.
Just raise a contingency, so you're fine.
Darn it, yeah. We don't run into anything.
Yeah,
Mr. Supervisor, I move to award the construction, contract administration and construction inspection and layout to DLZ for a price of $18,300.
I will support that. Motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, board members, again. Good stuff going forward.
We're just razzing you, Mikey.
Yeah. Item I.
Careful with words.
Item I is request for discussion to consider an increase for planning commissioners and zoning board of appeals members from $45 to $75 per meeting. And I will say that I personally think that that is extremely reasonable because I know myself, some of these meetings, you might get away with a few that you're in and out, but some of them, boy, we could camp out here and make eggs in the morning.
Well, if you're the staff planner, you can set a world record.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, that's right.
Absolutely. Any questions or comments from the board?
They're paid quarterly, just, I need a refresher, they're paid quarterly, and if they're not there, they don't get paid. If they're paid there, how does that work?
They're,
I can answer. So yes, they are paid quarterly, and you're paid only if you attend.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
I have a couple questions. We weren't given any supplemental information to this agenda item, so how does this compare into surrounding communities? Do we know?
Well,
So, I
I'll
was
let
gonna say,
Mr. Ruggles go with that one.
yeah, so I actually requested this item to be on the agenda. It's discussion that's come up a number of times. I've had the privilege of serving on the Planning Commission and the ZBA. And as anybody has attended a meeting or has been on a board there, they know that these meetings can go on for hours, 3-4 hours, not to mention the homework that comes along with the appointment. Preparation, site visits, phone calls. You got to talk to Sean before every meeting. So obviously, all the people that are on these boards are appointed, and it's definitely not about money. However, $45, in my opinion, was just not really enough to be commensurate with the amount of service that gets put into it. So that's why I requested this discussion, but I didn't put in the time to see how it compared to the surrounding communities. I don't know if Sean has any
I
idea.
know the ZBA amended their bylaws last year, the year before, to have an ending time, right? You must end by like 11 PM, I think, now.
Well, 10 unless it's authorized by the chairperson with the approval of the board to go longer. Because if you think about it, if you get somebody sitting there the entire meeting and there's one item left, we're not going to let them have to come back next month.
No, I thought it was
Yeah.
a great idea, because
Right.
those meetings were very lengthy, could
Right.
be potentially very lengthy.
yeah, they also capped the number of cases at 6.
Was it 6?
Yeah, I think the record is maybe 8, and that is an unbelievable, that's a tough,
That's a,
tough meeting.
you were in that, right,
I
trustee
was
Powell?
in that meeting, yes.
When
They give you a,
when the night turned into
intermittent-
day.
1 p.m.
Did you get
1 a.m.
Did you get an intermission in that?
Yeah, a couple times, yeah.
So the question that was asked regarding comparative pay, I can only speak for Lyon Township because I'm aware of how they pay, and it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 for the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals. The chair makes, I think, an additional $5. The way that they handle it is that when a cost of living increase goes into effect, say it's 3% for the employees, 4% for the employees, it goes through the entire roster of appointees as well. So they may get, an odd like $2.37 a meeting, kind of a raise. So that's how they've kind of kept it up. Historically, when I got here 20 years ago, the Planning Commission and the ZBA were paid $35 a meeting. I want to say somewhere about 10 years ago, it was increased from 35 to 45, and that was really kind of coming out of a real rough downturn where there'd been like 6 years of pay freezes and things like that. So I don't know that any of the board members, like Scott said, or planning commissioners, ZBA members or planning commissioners, they definitely don't do it for the money. They do appreciate, though, the stipend to offset, their time. So as much as they kind of laughed about a $10 raise 10 years ago, they appreciated it because it was an acknowledgement, even though very small, of some of their work. And I think $75 would be probably at the low end of average countywide, if I had to guess. Certainly probably not the lowest, but, we might be at the lowest now.
I just wanted to make an
Yeah.
educated and fair decision, and I don't have anything to base it on. We weren't given any information with this item. And then I think this probably is the obvious, but if the alternates aren't there, then they obviously aren't paid for that meeting, correct?
That's correct, and the person who they replace is not compensated either. One thing, and I mentioned how Lyon handles it, that is not how we handle it. So if it's $75 and that gets approved tonight, it will be $75 until this board decides to change it at some date in the future. So there isn't an annual increase. We don't tie staff or contract increases for employees to, the pay for the appointees. Before I lose an opportunity, the one question I want to ask you, and it doesn't have to be decided tonight, but I would like some direction. We do charge application fees, $750 plus an acreage kind of formula for Planning Commission. That covers really 2 meetings, and it doesn't cover 2 meetings. It's already not enough for an applicant if you're talking about covering the cost of a meeting. And for the Zoning Board of Appeals, it's $385 for residential and $440 for non-residential. So unless the board has 2 options. They either leave the fee alone, knowing that we're going to be going into the red for all these applicants to come before the Planning Commission, or please give me some direction on what you'd like to see in the way of a fee ordinance amendment to kind of help offset these costs. It's an approximation. I talked to Mr. Ruggles about it today, as a matter of fact, how, Planning Commission doesn't usually have more than a couple of applicants on the average agenda. Sometimes the ZBA sees 4, 5, 6, in which case the township's making money, and that's never our goal, but we can't let the fee ebb and flow. So we pick an amount, and I think we have to have roughly 1.5 or 2 ZBA cases a month on average for the whole year to help cover the cost of holding all the meetings. Because you've got not just the $75, let's say, meeting, you've got the staff time, you've got the recording secretary time. So there's a lot that kind of goes into it.
Advertising.
And advertising is a big piece, and that just gets more expensive for ZBA. Planning Commission has a mechanism where we charge a public hearing fee separate, so that's not as big of an issue. So there's some nuance to both of them. So I guess if you say, leave it alone, don't touch it, then that'll end the discussion. If you say, please go back and try to come up with a recommendation so we can stay maybe on par, then you don't have to be specific tonight other than to say that, and I'll bring something back to you at a future meeting to kind of address what I think would be a potential gap or shortfall in covering the cost of those meetings.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Lisa, do you have anything to add? Is this?
Mr. Ruggles?
Is this a fair?
I have
Price?
not done a comparison, I really don't know what they pay.
Mr. Roman? Oh, 1 second. Mr. Roman?
So I was going to talk to you tomorrow about that. If you in tomorrow?
I am.
I'll talk to you about that tomorrow, maybe use your grease board. I'm not,
The fees, the fee
yeah,
breakdown?
for the
Sure.
fees.
Absolutely.
I don't completely understand it, and I've never been on those commissions. So if that's good with you, I would love to just sit down with you and look at them.
And I'll say our fees comparatively for the planning commission are, I think, on the lower end of average too. So I think a nominal increase to help offset some of this is probably appropriate. I mean, if you're talking about a developer coming in with a $100 million development project, for them to pay an extra $200 or $300 one time to go to the planning commission, I mean, their lunch costs more than that. I don't think that residents should be subsidizing, I guess is that's my opinion. The residents shouldn't be subsidizing development projects, even if it's $200 or $300 per application. I think it's a little easier to leave the ZBA alone, and not just because they're generally residents coming in, asking to do something to their home. It's because there's so much more volume that with some kind of math projections, I think we can adjust that very minimally, maybe as little as $50 an application fee, compared to maybe $200 or $300 for planning.
Right.
But we can talk more about that if
Yeah,
that's okay with.
And I also wanted to thank Trustee Ruggles for bringing this to the board, because I think it's long overdue. And at the same time, I'm not quite sure 75 was enough. I mean, if you want to make a motion for 90, I'd certainly support that too, but.
Before we go into motion, we do have a comment from the public. You'll need to come up to the podium and.
Get up. Mary Early, 5925 Pine Ridge Court. With the exclusion of the 3 officers, the other 4 trustees, you all attend your own board meetings and committee meetings, but we try to attend all of them.
Yes, you do.
And I'm not sure that you know how much knowledge, experience, and expertise is involved and shown by your members of all your boards and committees. They deserve pay raises. It's amazing. Every meeting we go to, we learn something. We're educated every time. So I'm totally in favor of this, and I think 75 is a real pittance. So I totally stand behind that.
Thank you,
Mary.
I just have one comment. I still got the pleasure of privilege serving on the planning commission, and it's antiquated. We need to, I'm in total favor of this. There's a lot of hours that go into it, a lot of, when you're first on the board, a big learning curve. And we have an excellent community development director that leads these meetings, and I'm in total favor of it.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Ruggles?
We know, Mary. I want to say, we are aware that our commissions and committees are great, and, they're our extension of us, and they help us to function, so thank you for complimenting them.
I would just say that I just wanted to hear what the board had to say in regards to this, and the 75 was just kind of a starting off point. So I'm happy to hear what Mike had to say, and I don't know how everybody else feels, but.
Make a motion, see what happens.
Okay, all right, sure. I'll make a motion to approve a pay increase for planning commissioners and zoning board appeals members from $45 to $75 per meeting, and to have further discussion with Mr. O'Neill as far as potential changes to the fee schedule for the planning commission and the zoning board of appeals.
A motion looking for support?
Support.
Motion, support. Question?
Just a comment, I will be voting no because I don't think you're moving it high enough.
Well, if it fails, we can try again.
Okay.
Okay, I have a motion, I have support. All in favor?
Aye.
I mean, I don't,
Opposed.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
Okay. Somebody else want to make the next?
New
one?
motion.
We probably should do a roll call vote.
Roll call vote, Mr. Clerk.
That was pretty clear.
Supervisor Colwell.
No.
Treasurer Rahman.
No.
Trustee Powell.
No.
Trustee Voorhees.
No.
Trustee Smith.
no.
Trustee.
Well, I was the only yes,
Ruggles?
so yeah, I'm still yes.
You had to support your own motion.
Okay, motion fails. Second motion.
Can I make another one?
Yes, you can make them all night long.
All right, here we go.
Doesn't mean we're going to approve them, but
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve a pay increase for planning commissioners and zoning board of appeals members from $45 to $90 per meeting, and to have further discussion with Mr. O'Neill as far as fee increases or changes for the planning commission and the zoning board of appeals.
I have motion, support? Support. I have motion, support. All in favor?
We should probably do a roll call
We can do roll
vote
call
again.
if we want to, because we had a, go ahead.
Spending money.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
clerk Noble, yes, supervisor Colwell.
Yes.
Treasurer Roman.
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Can I ask for clarification? Would this be applicable to second quarter pay? Was that
Yes.
your intent?
That would be, make it
Okay,
easier.
so for all April meetings and going forward,
Going
just because
forward,
one has
yeah.
happened? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, continued effort to try to bring things in a little bit of better balance. Request by American Tower to open contract negotiations regarding tower site number 305629, 4870 Ormond Road. Well, I have a lot to say about this. Okay. And I'm going to tell you that there is, American Tower is one of the largest tower conglomerates, owns towers nationally and actually internationally. And they are constantly going around to tower owners and trying to negotiate changes in their lease. We currently get $1,303.86 per month from that tower currently, and they want to take us down to $900 per month. And then they're going to give us a 2% annual escalation versus the 3% that's currently in our contract. And then the terms of it just don't seem to fall into play because it doesn't allow us any negotiating room anywhere along the line in the future. Now, for those of you who may not know where this tower is, it is located in the backyard in the shadow of and the obstruction of Fire Station number 3. This thing is a,
Put the Round Lake Road.
no, this is
That's
Ormond
the
Road. This is
Ormond-
Station
Ormond
number
Road.
3.
Gotcha.
This would be compared to the hat pin in the middle of a cushion, okay? It's a very poor location of the tower, never should have been there in the first place. A couple of expansion plans that we've looked at in the past, little studies that were done, make it extremely difficult to do anything around it in any manner. It is not a monopole tower, it is a guy wire tower, so it takes up even more space on the property, and it's frankly kind of a pain in the you-know-what. I would tell these people that we should live out the contract that we have and go forward. I'm not necessarily interested in seeing the township go into a position of losing money. And if they come back and they send us this letter, well, you know, that tower might shut down. Well, they're required to take it down. And if they did, they'd be doing us a favor because then the property would be worth more money and be a better site. So, and I have experience in this field, so I have multiple towers, so I do know what they do. So I don't recommend that the board look at this or entertain this, but that's just my thought process.
I'm in total agreement.
Yep.
We're going backwards, not forwards. It's a total eyesore there, the property, in my opinion. And I would not negotiate with them. I would not go backwards.
Oh, I agree with you. I think you're an expert on the subject too, so glad to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm in agreement.
okay.
So am I.
Yep. When I read the word reduction, I was like, really? Yeah,
It's a considerable reduction.
yeah, absolutely.
Now, did your phone bill go down?
Yeah.
Okay, saying that, I will make a motion to decline the renegotiation of the American Tower, site number 305629 in White Lake Township. Looking for support.
Support.
I have motion, I have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have it. Thank you, board members, very, very much. FYI, 9885 Cedar Island Road update. Counselor, do you have your microphone?
Not much to update. We are in litigation. We had our initial disclosures, which were due last week, and we filed them. Opposing counsel has 2 weeks to file her initial disclosures. We have been trying to coordinate a meeting with the relevant township staff and opposing counsel and the defendant, sit in a room together and come up with a timeline of all the events that we're expecting things to happen by. As of now, they seem interested in working with the township and cleaning up the property. I'm told he has vacated this property. Obviously, we haven't confirmed that, but I'm told by the attorney that he and the two occupants of 9885 have vacated while they're cleaning up.
Okay. Any questions from the board this time? Moving forward. Thank you. Item number 2, Civic Center Committee update. Mr. Roman.
Well, I want to thank everyone who sent in goals to our architect for the Township Hall. I think our next meeting is end of April, Sean?
Next design committee meeting is next week, Wednesday. No, 2 weeks from, 2 weeks from tomorrow.
The 26th.
26th. So I've not heard back from the architects since we sent them the goals. I don't know, have you heard back from Pettit Straub since we sent goals?
There've been some more kind of schematic layouts.
Yeah, that's right. So we got the schematic layouts. We gave him feedback. I've not seen anything since then. I do know there was an amendment that you sent out for the fire department, the fire half of the building, and I'm not sure what that entailed.
So the fire department and police department are much further ahead on their building, the schematic design of their building than we are with Township Hall. And so there have been meetings with the fire department and the police department as recently as yesterday to talk more about that kind of schematic design, which again is still very conceptual until the committee and the board decide to move ahead with it. So you're correct. There have been some changes. To my understanding, the square footage of the building hasn't changed. It's more of just the kind of inner workings.
Inner workings.
And just to tell you, I think the plan in the very short term is to talk to McCarthy and Smith, give them these revisions and ask them to come up with a rough idea on pricing. There's been a lot of talk about, cost per square foot and the overall budget expectations. And until the architects give them something kind of rough to price, they don't know what to go out and get an estimate on or to give us an estimate on based on their experience. So we're really kind of in a holding pattern. We don't know if we need to cut, and hopefully we don't. If we do, how much? And then really that's got to come back to the board too. We have a budget established in the RFP of $35 million. If the board decides to change that one way or another, well, that's up to the township board, but that's something that needs to, I think, be presented early on so we don't get to the end of the design and find out we're $5 or $10 million over budget. So there are going to be lots and lots of discussions, both at the design committee and then at the board level through not just these updates, but very likely special meetings that have to happen at least a couple of times going forward in order to get everything kind of in good shape to move into, more of a final design.
Yep. So schematically for the Township Hall, I saw Anthony, Rick, and Mike Powell's comments. I don't know, did Andrea, Liz, and Scott get those schematic pictures too, Sean?
The email that with the 3 different pages.
Yes, okay,
Yeah,
so you
sorry.
got it.
Yeah.
So
I don't think I got an email with 3 pages.
with the schematic?
It
like
wasn't 3 pages, it was
Little
like the 3.
rectangles with different colors. And
I did get a one drawing that of a triangle. Ooh,
Yep.
are you okay?
Yeah, sorry.
Can't lean
Yeah,
back in those
right.
discount chairs, but
So anyway, it seemed like at least the 4 of us kind of liked the lower level, kind of the lower level walkout, having the senior center, the boardroom, possibly some multi-purpose space, maybe some storage. The big question is, then on the first floor, do you put all the township offices on that first floor?
Yep.
Or do you put, say, the assessor and the supervisor up on the second floor? That was a question. Personally, I liked all of the offices on one floor.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I haven't heard from Andrea, Scott,
no, I
and Liz. What's that?
I looked at it, I just didn't respond. I definitely will.
Which one, you like the 2 floors or the one?
I like everything on the same floor.
As far as the offices?
Yes.
I think, I'm gonna pull up the email so I make sure that I got what you're talking about.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead. You'll have to identify yourself.
Again.
That's all right.
Steve Woodard, 953 Schuyler. I saw the schematic, which is probably very early in the process, and the one thing that struck me with the seniors center in the basement was the elevator going down seemed to be quite small. And we're talking about seniors here with handicap accessibility and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if that's the intent or if you were saving that space for, this is going to be the elevator, the space will get determined later. But I just say make it big enough that, you can get a good amount of people with wheelchairs and walkers and canes and stuff in there.
It's in very preliminary staging, but very good point.
And one more, for the record, just one more plan, mention comment about the plan is that this is a walkout site, so there'll be 2 main entrances. There'll be a lower level and a main level entrance, and if the senior center ends up on the lower floor, which it seems like it will, the seniors will have ample parking and ample handicap parking to enter from the west side of the building into the lower level directly, and I would think the vast majority of them could avoid needing to use the stairs or the elevator. That is the plan, to make both levels, or however many levels we end up having, as accessible as possible.
Yeah, initially when we did some conceptual designs,
yeah.
one of them that was done previously, there was what I'll call the walkout, the main floor, and for lack of anything else, I'll call it like a live truss area or a loft area. That was to try to keep the footprint of the building to a size that was functional, but yet didn't eat up any unnecessary land for 2 reasons. Number one, it will allow for future expansion in 10, 20 years if something goes on, for us to add on to the township building, because we'll now be able to go out because we went up, okay? And it will also allow us to have more land for the town center district, which is, we're trying to maximize our ultimate return on that. So, and there are some economies in going up versus out. All the buildings that I've done over the years, unless it was something over 5 stories, where you got into a lot of heavy structural steel, it made a lot more sense to go up than it did to go out. From a cost standpoint.
Speak board, any more thoughts?
I'd like to see the layouts that the architects have done with the input that we've given, because I still believe there should be a second story. I believe it should be more of a kitchen, activity, employee area.
Exactly.
Eating area. In my mind, I actually have a deck / patio area on the west side of the building, so that we can, the employees can go out and actually sit out on, outside to eat and enjoy themselves in the summertime. So I'd like to see Stu's layout a little bit more first.
I think he's still working that out as a result of these comments that get back to him. So if you haven't done your comments, I'd say at this point in time, get him back and let's see what he comes up with.
So there's only one scheme, correct? Because
There
was 3.
Yeah, I only had a scheme.
Yeah, so I only have one as well, and Scott and I are looking at it, and so I would definitely have some comments to rearrange this. I envision it a little differently than what I received.
You got the least favorite of all of them on yours and Andrea's, so maybe Sean can make sure you guys get all 3
Yeah,
layouts.
We didn't get
Yeah,
anything
you need to
else.
see all 3.
And our comments.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we didn't get any of that.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely.
Anything else, Mr. Roman?
Well, yeah, so when I've been getting emails from board members, I just reply to all, hoping that way everyone can see my comments.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be easier on you, Sean, rather than you have to try to forward every board comment?
So I'm happy to be, though, that repository to collect everything. So if you could just individually email me, it would probably be cleaner to handle it that way. And then I can send it over.
Excuse me.
Can you catch
Mr.
us up, though,
Ro-
because we're missing something?
Excuse me.
Okay.
Mr. Roman, I understand what you're saying, but
Yeah.
you should not be replying all.
Don't wanna reply all.
Mr. O'Neill is the funnel, okay?
Okay.
And this is part of the decision process, and technically,
Right now.
yeah. I've directed Mr. O'Neill to be the funnel multiple times to this board. I will do it again. And next time you don't do it, I'm going to slap you with a yardstick, okay? So, just like the nuns.
What if I do it unintentionally? I still get slapped.
So then I'm going to get you with the hammer, okay? All right, so just, it just makes more sense. I know it might be, in some sense, maybe a little frustrating, but Mr. O'Neill is the funnel, and we should direct all the information towards him.
Will
Okay,
do.
but we got to back the funnel up a little bit, because we're missing stuff, some of the
Then
trustees.
if you can, if you know you're missing something,
I don't know what I'm missing.
We will,
but that's why we're having
we'll make
this
sure that
discussion. So
everybody
if you're
gets all the
missing something,
schemes,
we'll make
because I
sure
think
you
it's
get
come
it.
out in bits and pieces. We'll make sure all the schemes go to everybody. Everybody does have the goals, so if anyone wants to respond who hasn't already to the goals, I would say please send that to Hannah. And as far as the schemes, we'll get that out.
Our homework at the last meeting, yeah.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else, Mr. Roman?
No, I think we hit it.
Okay, well, take you down Elizabeth Lake Road. We are still in a holding pattern with the road commission. I'm going to make some inquiries. We are getting to a point where I'm getting a little anxious, okay, to get this going. But however, we are moving in the right direction by getting the utilities underway. So that part is important. And we can pull the trigger on the bid process on this very quickly. We just sent back our letters to HUD that had to be reposted because of
A ridiculous
working
internal
remotely,
snafu
which-
of HUD.
and not putting the right.
Yeah, because
address.
someone didn't check a voicemail in a HUD office,
Yeah.
and it became our problem to republish and a further delay,
Yeah,
just
so,
for the record.
just for the record, yeah.
But it's inept
Government
federal government at work.
So, moving forward, so we're moving forward on that. I have had a considerable amount of interest from outside parties that are very interested in coming to White Lake and are now taking a little bit of notice now that we're actually moving along with the roundabout projects and things are happening. And they're seeing a lot of potential growth out here. So it's going to be very interesting to see who's going to bring dinner to the table, so to speak, in the next, I'd say about a year to a year and a half. Good. Very, very, very interesting. Okay.
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
If I could share something. I was out of town last week and the week before, but I was keyed into the first kind of preliminary meeting with the construction manager, both architects, and the design committee, construction committee, and I was very pleased in that meeting. Everyone agreed that this project is going to be three projects. There's the public safety building, there's the township hall, and then there's the overall site work, which incorporates the other two buildings, but it expands into the areas that Rick was just talking about, the property that we will be selling in the future. But it's progressing. I'm very confident in our architects, and I'm really thrilled with the way they're approaching it, and I'm hoping that we have the plans proceeding for this board to see. Each of the architects and the construction manager have agreed to meet with this board and make presentations to this board as we get further along, so that this board can actually get responses back right from the design team. And so
It's going to be very important.
it would be very important for all of us to continue that feedback to them, right?
And to that point, to your point, we are going to be very, very busy in the next 4.5 months.
Yes, we are.
And Sean, our community development director, is going to be working a ton of hours. After his regular, duty hours. So, we're gonna get through it, but it's gonna be a lot.
Right.
So, yeah, we'll be busy. Okay, anything else? Okay, now we're going to go into closed session to recession to closed session and consider attorney-client privilege communications in accordance with MCL 15.2681H. I'm making that in the form of a motion, looking for support.
Support.
I have motion and support, roll call vote.
Supervisor Kowa.
Yes.
Treasurer Roman.
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes.
We are going into executive session. For those of you who are leaving us tonight, good night.
We going over here.
Look for the comments later.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
What's the address? I can never remember.
close
Not in there.
communication, I don't have it.
Sean, what's that address?
9719.
9719 Cedar Island.
Okay, I'll make a motion to go back into general session.
Support it.
Motion support, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. At this time, the direction for the attorney to proceed with litigation 9719 Cedar Island Road. I'll make that motion, support, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Trustee comments? Mr. Roman?
I'd just like to thank all the residents that have been purchasing these boat recycling bags. Just such a great benefit to all of our environments. Rick, let's do whatever we can to spread the word to other communities because it's taken off like wildfire.
Yeah, it's amazing the calls I'm getting from literally all over southeastern Michigan.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah,
all I had.
it's going to work. Cool. Mr. Powell?
Mr. Supervisor, I have no comment.
Ooh, good Lord, let me mark that down.
Yes.
No comment. Trustee Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'll be quick with the library update. I have had the pleasure of being invited to be on their steering committee for their strategic plan update, which is similar to what the township does as their master plan update. So it's creating goals for the library, and there will be some focus groups for the public to be involved as this process proceeds over the summer. And then the Friends of the Library, I just want to announce an event that they have coming up. It's a high tea on Sunday, May 7th, 1 to 3. Tickets are available through Friends of the Library, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. They're there from 10:30 to 12:30, or you can drop off a check at the library. That will get to them. And tickets are $45 a person. It should be a lovely event. The library is ramping up a lot of events as the weather is getting warm. They've opened up their patio, and there's free games there, like large, chess games and outdoor games that you can come in and play with your friends or a family. They have a lot of things going on in the Idea Lab, a seed program where you can come and get some flowers or vegetables to grow. So the library is ramping up all of their summer and spring activities. So I think that's all for my update. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Voorhees?
Continuing on with Liz's comments about the library is hosting a electronic recycling drop-off on Earth Day, Saturday, April 22nd. Finish off your spring cleaning right by getting all our electronics instead of putting them in the dump, garbage, whatever you want to call it. hightechrecyclingmichigan.com is the website. I actually had it pulled up and then I turned off my computer. So, but it was printers, MP3 players, all the technology that we have out. I personally have got a couple neighbors that have contacted me and have asked me more and have given me some stuff. So I plan on being there. It's Saturday, April 22nd from 9 a.m. to noon. And then continuing on with no environmental stuff, even though this is a month away, May 20th is No Has, which I will speak about next month. A bunch of us are going to MTA next month. I'm going to have the pleasure of representing. Next week, I'm sorry, yes, I agree. I'm going to have the be able to represent White Lake Township on the flag bearer. So if the White Lake Township flag is gone, which it will be gone Wednesday, it'll be at my house for a couple days. It will travel to Traverse City, Acme Township, be represented there in Traverse City, and then it'll be back. So I'm a proud White Laker, and I'd like to represent us outside of Oakland County.
Thanks for
So
doing
thank you.
that.
Yeah,
It's a
thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
You've been doing that a long time, Andrea.
It's family, there's some history in it, as most of us know.
Tradition, yeah, love it.
Very good. Mr. Noble?
I'd just like to, Jason left, but I'd like to thank him for, he's been off a few days and here and there, and he's done a terrific job dealing. It's very hard job to be the ordinance guy or officer within.
Thankless job.
Thankless. It is, it really is. And it's a dangerous job that I don't think a lot of people understand, that when he's not going there to be friendly, hi, I'm here to, he's there to enforce, and people get very angry at him. And I like to thank him and Sean's office for a great job. He always takes care of things and is right on top of things. And he's a very good diplomat with the community. So, thank you, Jason, wherever you're at.
Okay. Mr. Ruggles.
Thank you. Yeah, the planning commission will be meeting again on April 20th. And I'd like to apologize for missing last month's board meeting. Looks like you guys did a great job without me here. I thought about you the entire time.
Sure you
Sure you
did, with
missed
a
us.
margarita in your hand.
Fine, fine.
And I guess that's all I got. I'll see you next week.
Yeah, okay. I really like to thank everyone, as always, for coming to our meetings and being supportive. It's great to see we have the attendance levels for the most part that we have. It's also very interesting to see the public's reaction to this recycling program, which was an experiment. And it seems to be taking off. I've literally, my office has gotten calls from literally all over Southeast Michigan.
Wow.
And I think we're at over 20,000 hits. Likes on, it's over 20,000, like 22,000, some crazy number like that. So we'll be ordering some more bags and we'll make a difference. Just to give you an example, if we tried to take a guesstimate of weight, and Mr. Woodard and I, when we did his single 20-foot pontoon boat, and we were guessing between 5 and 8 pounds of film,
Plastic, yeah.
and that, because the bag was pretty stout. You take that times 100 bags, that's between 500 and 800 pounds of material that'll go back into the system. So, for more boat wrap material is one thing, but roofing and decking, the company that is in western Michigan, so it'll also be helping a Michigan economy to produce products within Michigan to be used again in Michigan. So I think it's something that's been overlooked, and I think it's something that we really need to, be mindful of. And one less thing in the landfill, and one more thing that maybe will make another product that can come to market and help stimulate the economy in Michigan. We all make plans to do things, and one thing I learned about in life is if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans. Those are my dad's famous words. And so, we're planning here to do everything that we want to do, but we're going to have to kind of roll with the punches that we have and roll with whatever punches that life throws us. So we just got to keep moving forward. So with that, I will say good night, happy Easter, good Passover to everyone. I know the holidays have passed, but I didn't get a chance to say that. And I say good night, God bless, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, looking for support.
Support.
I have motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is.